Bismarck, what was so interesting and magnificent about her? Was it her sheer size? Was it her mighty 38 centimeters and 15 inches SKC with 34 guns that struck fear into the British? No. It was the hunt. The biggest problem wasn't sinking the Bismarck, it was finding the Bismarck that made it so tough. Well, during both world wars, the island of British was so dependent on huge numbers of ships to bring in food and essential war materials. Protecting this lifeline was one of the highest priorities for the British forces. If this lifeline could be severed, the British Empire in Europe would have either to sue for peace, negotiate a ceasefire, or abandon the British Isles of a base of operations to blockade the sea approaches to Western Europe, giving Germany in effect complete this mastery of Western Europe with no tactical base in Europe to oppose that control. Germany's naval leadership under Admiral Erich Johann Albert Raeder at the time firmly believed that the defeat by blockade was achievable. However, they also believed that the primary method to achieve this objective was to use traditional commerce raiding tactics founded upon surface combatants. Cruisers, battlecruisers, fast battleships that were only supported by submarines regardless of any method or manner. Raeder convinced the High Command of Wehrmacht and Hitler that this is a lifeline was severed, Britain should be defeated regardless of any other factors. So, Operation Rhine exercise was the latest in the series of raids on Allied shipping carried out by service units of the Kriegsmarine. If it was preceded by an Operation Berlin, a highly successful sortie of Skornhorst and Geneseo, which ended in March 1941. By May 1941, the Kriegsmarine battleships Skornhorst and Geneseo were at rest. On the western coast of France, posing a threat to the Atlantic convoys, they were heavily bombed by the Royal Air Force. The original plan was to have both ships involved in the operation, but Skornhorst was undergoing heavy repairs to the engines, and Geneseo had just suffered a damaging torpedo hit days ago, which caused her to be out of action for 6 months. This left just 2 new warships available, which was Bismarck and Prinz Eugen. The Kriegsmarine had 3 light cruisers, but none of them had enough endurance to be necessary for the operation. Both initially stationed in the Baltic Sea. Following the completion of repairs, Skornhorst underwent trials in the Baltic before returning to Kiel in December 1940. There she joined Geneseo in preparation for the Operation Berlin, a planned raid in the Atlantic Ocean designed to wreak havoc on the Allied shipping lanes. Severe storms caused damage to Geneseo, but Skornhorst was undamaged. The 2 ships were forced to put into the port during the storm. Skornhorst went to Gotenhafen, while Geneseo went to Kiel for repairs. Repairs were quickly completed on the 2nd of January 1941. The 2 ships under the command of Admiral Gunther Loschens left port for the North Atlantic. They were detected in the Skagerrak, and the heavy units of the British Home Fleet deployed to cover the passage between Iceland and the Faroes. The Germans' radar detected the British at long range, which allowed the Loschens to avoid the British patrol. With the aid of the squall, by 3rd of February the 2 battleships had evaded the last British cruiser and had broken into the open Atlantic. On 6th of February the 2 ships refueled from the tanker Schleswig south of the Cape Farewell. Shortly after 8:30, on 8th of February, lookouts spotted convoy HX 106, escorted by the battleships Rumeli's. Loschens' orders prohibited him from engaging Allied capital ships, and so the attack call was off. Skornhorst commander KZS Hoffmann, however, closed to 23,000 miles, 25,000 yards, in an attempt to lure Rumeli's away from the convoy so that Geneseo could attack the convoy. Loschens ordered Hoffmann to rejoin the flagship immediately. The 2 battleships steamed off to the northwest to search for more shipping. On 22nd of February, the pair spotted an empty convoy sailing west, which dispersed after the appearance of the battleships. Skornhorst managed to sink only 1 ship during the encounter, the 6,000-ton tanker Mostras. Lutyens then decided to move to a new area as the surviving members' dispersed convoy had sent distress signals. He chose the Cape Town, Gibraltar and Convoy route and positioned him to the northwest of the Cape Verde. The two ships encountered another convoy escorted by the battleship Malaya on 8th of March. Lutyens again forbade an attack, but he shadowed the convoy and directed U-boats to attack. A pair of U-boats sank a total of 28,488 tons of shipping on the night of 8th to 9th of March. Malaya turned on the two battleships and closed to 24,000 meters and 26,000 yards, well within the range of the Germans' guns, but Lutyens refused to be drawn into an engagement. He instead turned toward the mid-Atlantic, where Scornhorst sank the Greek cargo ship Marathon. The two ships refueled from the tankers Uckermark and Ermland on 12th of March. On 15th of March, the two battleships with the two tankers in company encountered a dispersed convoy in the mid-Atlantic. Scornhorst sank two ships several days later. The main body of the convoy was located, and Scornhorst sank another 7 ships, totaling 27,277 tons. One of the surviving ships radioed the location of the battleships, which summoned the powerful British battleships Rodney and King George. Scornhorst and Geneseo used their high speed to escape in a squall, and the intervention by the British battleships convinced Lutyens that the chances of further success were small. He therefore decided to head for Brest in occupied France, which the ships reached on the 22nd of March. Throughout the operation, Scornhorst had difficulties with the superheater tubes in her boilers. Repair work lasted until July, which caused the ship to be unavailable during Operation Rheinübung, facilitated by the new battleship Bismarck in May 1941. Scornhorst joined Geneseo in preparation for Operation Berlin, the planned breakout into the Atlantic Ocean designed to wreak havoc on the Allied shipping lanes. Severe storms caused damage to Geneseo. Though Scornhorst was undamaged, the two ships were forced to put into port during the storm. Geneseo went to Kiel for repairs, while Scornhorst put into Gdynia, Gotenhafen. Repairs were quickly completed, and on 22nd January 1941, the two ships again under the command of Admiral Lutyens left port for the North Atlantic. On 15th of March, the two battleships with two tankers in company encountered a dispersed convoy in the mid-Atlantic. Geneseo captured 3 tankers and sank a 4th, totaling of 20,139 GRT of shipping. The next day, stragglers from a convoy were sighted. Geneseo sank 7 ships for 26,693 GRT, while her sister encountered for 6 vessels for 35,088 long tons with 35,651 T. One of the surviving ships radioed the location of the German battleships, which summoned the powerful British battleships Rodney and King George. Scornhorst and Geneseo went to Brest for maintenance after they had their encounter with King George and Rodney. In 1932, German naval leaders requested a series of battleship designs intended to fit within the 35,000-ton limit, imposed on leading the maritime nations by the Washington Naval Treaty. Initial work began on what became the Bismarck class the following year, and initially centered around an armament of 8 to 13-inch guns and top speed of 30 knots in 1935. The signing of the Anglo-German Naval Agreement accelerated German efforts, as it allowed the Kriegsmarine to build up to 35% of the total tonnage of the Royal Navy. Additionally, it bound the Kriegsmarine to the Washington Naval Treaty tonnage restrictions. But Germany got increasingly concerned about France's naval expansion, specifically the 2 Richelieu-class battleships France had started in 1935, and so the German designers sought to create a new type of battleship that would outclass the newer French vessels. Design work moved forward towards debates over the caliber of the main battery, the type of propulsion systems, and the thickness of the armour. These were further complicated in 1935 with the departure of Japan from treaty systems and implementations of an escalator clause that increased the tonnage limit to 45,000 tons. When German designers learned that the new French Richelieu class would mount 15-inch guns, that a decision was made. Use similar weapons in 4-2 gun turrets. This battery was supplemented by a secondary battery of 12 5.9 150mm guns. Several means of propulsion were considered, including turbo-electric, diesel-geared, and steam drives. After assessing each turbo-electric drive, was initially favoured as it had proven effective aboard the American Lexington-class aircraft carriers. As construction moved forward, the new class propulsion came to be geared turbine engines, turning 3 propellers for protection. The new class mounted an armour belt ranging in thickness from 8.7 to 12.6. This area of the ship was further protected by the 8.7 armoured transverse bulkheads. Elsewhere, armour for the conning tower was 14. On the sides and 7.9 on the roof, the armour scheme reflected the German approach of maximising protection while maintaining stability. Ordered under the name Ersatz Hannover, better known as the replacement Hannover, the lead ship of the new class Bismarck was laid down at Blohr and Voss, which is an engineering company in Hamburg, on July 1st of 1936. The first name served as an indication that the new vessel was replacing the old pre-dreadnought Hanover. Sighted down the ways on February 14th to 1939, the new battleship was sponsored by Dorothy von Lohenfeld, granddaughter of the Chancellor Otto von Bismarck. Bismarck would be followed as second battleship of its class, Tirpitz. In 1941, which Tirpitz was laid down in November 1936 at Wilhelmshaven Naval Shipyard. Bismarck were built by Blohm and Voss, the same engineering company that Tirpitz was built by. Blohm and Voss was founded in Hamburg in 1877. They specialised in steel-hulled ships, and Bismarck, the battleship, had a mounted battery of 8 and 15 inches guns. Bismarck was capable of going over 30 knots, which made Bismarck to be quickly identified as a threat by the Royal Navy, and so efforts to trap Bismarck were underway after its commissioning in August 1940. The Royal Navy knew that the Bismarck was commissioned in 1940, and so Bismarck was after a while ordered to go to the Atlantic, and Bismarck had sunk HMS Hood at the Battle of Denmark Strait, but soon came under a combined attack by the British ships and aircraft. Bismarck was damaged by an aerial torpedo and eventually was sunk by the British service ships on May 27th of 1941. Bismarck was in Nazi Germany, and then Bismarck is a battleship. Bismarck was built at Blohm and Voss in Hamburg and laid down on July the 1st, 1936, launched February 14th, 1939 and commissioned on August 24th, 1940. Bismarck was sunk on May 27th, 1941. Specifications: displacement 45,000 to 451 tons, length 450.5 meters, width 36 meters, draft 9.3 to 10.2 meters, propulsion 12 high pressure Wagner boilers powering 3 Blohm and Voss geared turbines at 150 to 170 horsepower, speed 30.8 knots, range 8,525 nautical miles at 19 knots, then 4,500 nautical miles at 28 knots. Complement 2,092. The officers is 103 and 1,989 enlisted. Next is armament. Guns: 8 308mm L48.5 SKC, 34, and 4 turrets with 2 guns on each. 12 150mm L55 SKC 28, 16 105mm L65 SKC 37, SKC 33, 16 37mm L83 SKC 30, 12 20mm L65 MGC 30 single, 8 20mm L65 MGC 38 quadruple. The aircraft is a 4 Arada AR-196A3 seaplanes using 1 double-ended catapult. Bismarck was commissioned in August 1940 with Captain Ernst Lindman in command. Bismarck departed in Hamburg to conduct sea trials in Kiel Bay, testing up the ship's armament, power plant and sea-keeping abilities to continue through the fall in the relative safety of the Baltic Sea. Arriving at Hamburg in December, the battleship entered the yard for repairs and alterations. Although scheduled to return to Kiel in January, I reckon the Kiel Canal prevented this from occurring until March. Finally reaching the Baltic, Bismarck resumed training operations with World War II under the way. The German Kriegsmarine visualized using Bismarck as a radar to attack British convoys in the North Atlantic with its main battery. The battleship would be able to strike from a distance, inflicting maximum damage while placing itself at minimal risk. The battleship's first mission in this war was dubbed Operation Rheinübung, which would be called in English Exercise Rhine, and proceeded under the command of Vice Admiral Gunther Schütz. Sailing in tandem with the cruiser Prince Eugen, Bismarck departed Norway on May 22, 1941 and headed towards the shipping lanes. Aware of Bismarck's departure, the Royal Navy had begun moving ships to intercept, steering north and west. Bismarck headed for the Denmark Strait between Greenland and Iceland. Battle of the Denmark Strait. Entering the strait, Bismarck was detected by the cruisers HMS Norfolk and HMS Suffolk, which called for reinforcements. Responding were the battleship HMS Prince of Wales and the battlecruiser HMS Hood. The two intercepted the Germans at south end of the strait on the morning of May 24th, less than 10 minutes after the ships opened fire. Hood was struck in one of its magazines, causing an explosion that blew the ship in half. Unable to take on both German ships alone, Prince of Wales broke up the fight during the battle. Bismarck was hit in a fuel tank, causing a leak and forcing a reduction in speed. The resulting oil leak also helped the British cruisers shadow her. Norfolk and Suffolk and the damaged Prince of Wales continued to shadow the Germans, supporting their position to draw British forces to the scene. In response, it was decided that the undamaged Prince Eugen would detach to continue raiding while Bismarck drew off the pursuit. In conjunction with this, Admiral Donitz committed the U-boat arm to support Bismarck with all the available U-boats in the Atlantic. He organised 2 patrol lines to trap the home fleet should Bismarck lead her pursuers to them. One line of 7 boats was arrayed in the mid-Atlantic, while another of 8 boats was stationed west of the Bay of Biscay. At 6:40 p.m. on 24th of May, Bismarck turned on her pursuers and briefly opened fire to cover the escape of Prince Eugen. The German cruiser slipped away undamaged. At 10 p.m, Victorious was 120 miles away and 109 kilometers. Victorious launched an air attack with the 9 Fairway Swordfish torpedo bombers, which were guided in by Norfolk. It was poor weather and against heavy fire. They attacked and made a single torpedo hit under the bridge. However, up against strong bell armour and anti-torpedo bulges, it failed to cause substantial damage. The attacking aircraft were all safely recovered by Victorious, despite poor weather, darkness, the aircrew inexperience, and the failure of the carrier's homecoming beacon. At 3 AM on 25th of May, the British Shadowers lost contact with Bismarck. At first, it was all thought that she would return to the North Sea, and ships were directed accordingly. The Lutjens, believing that he was still being shadowed by the British, broke radio silence by sending a long radio message to headquarters in Germany. This allowed the British to triangulate Bismarck's approximate position and send aircraft to hunt for Bismarck. And so, by the time that it was realised that Lutjens was heading for the Brest, Bismarck had broken the naval cordon and gained a lead. By 11 PM, Lutjens was well to the east of Tovey's force and had managed to evade Rodney. Bismarck was short of fuel. Due to the damaging hit inflicted by Prince of Wales, which had caused the Lutjens to reduce speed to conserve fuel, but Bismarck still had enough speed to outrun the heavy units. The home fleet and the safety of France from the south. However, Somerville's Force H, with the carrier Ark Royal and the battlecruiser Renown and the light cruiser Sheffield were approaching to intercept the Bismarck. The British ships were also beginning to unload fuel, and the escape of the Bismarck seemed more and more certain. However, at 10:30 AM on 26th of May, at BBY Catalina Flying Club based at Lough, Northern Ireland, found Bismarck. She was 700 miles and 1,100 kilometers from Brest and not within the range of the Luftwaffe air cover. This contact was taken over by two Swordfish from Ark Royal. This carrier now launched an airstrike, but her aircrew were unaware of Sheffield's proximity to Bismarck. This took the British cruiser for the German battleship and therefore immediately attacked her. Their torpedoes had been fitted with influence detonators, and several of them exploded prematurely. Others, well, they missed their target, and the attacking aircraft then received a warning from Ark Royal that Sheffield was in the vicinity, whereupon the Swordfish finally recognised the cruiser and broke off the attack. Ark Royal now launched in almost impossibly bad weather conditions for air operations, and from a distance of less than 40 miles upbrink of Bismarck, a second strike consisting of 15 Swordfish. These were carrying torpedoes equipped with the standard and reliable contact detonators. The attack resulted in 2 or 3 hits on the German ship, one of which inflicted critical damage on her steering. A jammed rudder now meant she could now only sail away from her intended destination of Brest. At midnight, Lutjens signalled his headquarters. "Ship unmanoeuvrable. We shall fight to the last shell. Long live the Führer." Sink the Bismarck. Unable to continue with his mission, Lutjens ordered Prince Eugen to carry on while he turned the leaking Bismarck toward France. On the night of May 24th, aircraft from the carrier HMS Victorious attacked with little effect. 2 days later, aircraft from HMS Ark Royal scored a hit, jamming the Bismarck's rudder. Unable to maneuver, the ship was forced to steam in a slow circle while awaiting the arrival of the British battleship HMS King George and HMS Rodney. They were sighted the following morning, and Bismarck's final battle commenced. The battleships Rodney and King George waited for daylight on 27th of May before attacking at 8:47 AM. They opened fire quickly, hitting Bismarck. The gunners achieved near misses on Rodney, but the British ships had silenced most of their guns on the Bismarck. Despite close range shelling by Rodney, Alistair Port and widespread fires, Bismarck did not sink. According to Bollard's underwater surveys in recent years, the British guns achieved only 4 penetrations of Bismarck's armour, 2 through the upper armour belt on the starboard, and from King George, 2 on the port side from Rodney. These 4 hits occurred at 10 AM, at close range, causing heavy casualties among the sheltering crew. Nearly out of fuel and mindful of possible U-boat attacks, the British ships left for home. The heavy cruiser Deutsche attacked the torpedoes and made the 3 hits. Scuttling charges were soon set off by German sailors, and 10:40 am Bismarck capsized and sank. Deutsche and the destroyer Naomi rescued 110 survivors after an hour rescue. The rescue was abruptly ended when there were reports of a U-boat presence. Another 5 survivors were picked up by the U-74 and the German weather ship Sanchezwald. Over 2,000 died, including Captain Lindman and the Admiral Leuchtens. And this will be the end of the Bismarck. No longer on sea, now underwater. I'd like to thank you all for watching, and if you ever want more, please comment below, give me your opinions, negative or positive. Each is fine, so I can improve in the future. Thank you.